Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Hello Chime In, where we create meaningful conversations that help families, caregivers, and professionals ask better questions, think more collaboratively, and better understand the realities people may be navigating behind closed doors. I'm your host, Yuvelca Magdalena, and today we are launching a very special monthly expert conversation that I'm genuinely excited about because one thing I believe deeply is this: families deserve more than fragmented care. Parents deserve more than being told it's probably normal when something in their gut says otherwise. And professionals, especially those of us who support expectant parents, babies, and growing families, deserve opportunities to better understand where our lanes connect. No single provider holds every answer, but collaboration changes outcome. So today we begin an important new series with someone whose work brings a perspective many families may not yet know exists. Joining us today is Dr. Stefan Nichols, a neurologically focused family chiropractor and owner of Rise Family Chiropractic in Peachtree Corners, Georgia. His work supports babies, children, pregnant individuals, and families through nervous system centered chiropractic care, helping parents better understand the connection between stress, birth experiences, development, regulation, and just overall family wellness. His message is simple but powerful. There's a reason and a plan. Dr. Nichols, it's so great to be with you here again on Hello Chime In. How are you?
I am good. We just talked about that. I didn't realize that was me. So that's awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate how you described that. Described me and the business and what I do for the families out there. Thanks.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm an author and a writer, and I love putting words together, and I love doing research. So when I was looking you up and with some of the snippets that you sent me, I was like, oh, I can work with this, especially, when we're going to be talking about today's conversation that's called "What Your Baby Can't Say" and understanding the nervous system before words.
Mm.
I wanted to begin here because there's so many parents that are navigating the crying, the sleepless nights, the reflux, the tension, the feeding struggles, the moments where your baby cannot use words, but something still feels off. And sometimes, it's true. Some parents are reassured, but many are dismissed, and many even more so are overwhelmed. And for the professionals listening, the birth workers, the doulas, the lactation consultants, the educators, the helping professionals, the family support providers. Yes, I'm trying not to leave anybody out because this conversation matters for you too. Awareness creates stronger collaboration. So let's begin with that, Dr. Nichols. For parents who may be hearing the words nervous system regulation for the very first time, how does stress show up in babies before they can even, communicate with words? Because we definitely see stressed out parents when a baby cannot stop crying or when a baby doesn't
Yeah.
eat. So how does that show up in babies before they can communicate with the words?
Well, I think you touched on it already. I think about ourselves when we're really stressed out. And many times we exhibit similar symptoms. I use symptoms, yes. Things like moving around a lot, fidgety. Um, I wouldn't say we technically arch our back, but that is something that you see a lot in kids when it comes to a system that is not so much in the stress mode, but more so protective mode. Things like indigestion, so inability to keep foods down, latching issues as well, I would say is a common thing. And the biggest one probably that I see is the sleeping issue. You know, the kid that's screaming all the time that you just touched on consistently is are some things that we see when a kid is just stuck in this protective mode. And I think it's important to mention that it's these stressors that happen to a kid that leads their body or system into being in this protective mode to provide a little clarity, right? Things like birth trauma, things like um, chemical trauma, things like so these type of stressors, these type of traumas can force that kiddo's brain to make the decision of protecting itself. And when you protect yourself, that's when you exhibit similar symptoms. You're not going to have digestive, or you're not going to have your digestive system functioning best. You're not going to be able to sleep well. So that's why we see these things.
No, I'm happy to hear from your perspective because it brings me back. Like as you were talking, I was brought back to my different pregnancies, and how that was for me. Um, I only knew what was showed to me, taught to me by the other women in my family. And it's like you don't know what you don't know. And
Mm,
I think that right now, this generation is more aware of the nervous system and of trauma than what we were back then. Because,
mhm,
like you said, the symptoms, but the symptoms, behaviors, right? Patterns, all those things is what we're talking about. And I don't know if then I noticed it as the baby or the child, because, it's like the baby and the child's body
mhm,
communicating. I immediately thought there was a problem with me. Like I wasn't
mhm.
doing something right, so the baby's upset.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it like um the baby spitting up because of acid reflux or because their stomach is upset. To me, I'm like, are they eating? Am I giving them enough? And I'm not getting, I think that I overfed most of my kids
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
beginning, because I was so conditioned, first from the breastfeeding to think, oh my goodness, how these little drops of milk is going to feed this child. I didn't think back then how big their stomach was. I was just like, this baby needs to eat. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's a cultural, I don't, please, for anyone that's listening in, I'm not trying to call anybody out. I'm calling in for the conversation because culturally for me, being, Latina, it's like a healthy baby is a plumpy baby.
Yes. Yes.
So I
Yes.
didn't see it like that. I didn't think like now I do. But back then, and when I say now I do, I'm talking about with my fourth child. With the other three, I'm sorry, my loves, but I didn't see it like that. I mean, I could always, I was very in tuned. So I used to tap in on my spidey sense. Like if
Mm,
something fell off, it was off. If the behavior was a little bit different in my child, a different pattern, because I'm always looking at my baby. I'm always at the baby's face. I don't know how many parents did that back then or how many parents still do that. Like that real connection. I
mm,
wasn't the type to just leave the baby in the carrier or in the cradle or in the crib. I was always, the baby was attached to me. The women in my family would be like, oh my goodness, you're going to spoil that child. That child's going to be so used to being on you. But honestly, I don't know, Dr. Stefan, honestly, for me, I watched a lot of National Geographics, and I'm like, the gorilla mom has her baby attached. Even the lions, the cubs always run to the lioness, and she'll push them off like, hey, you can do this yourself type of thing. And for me, it was like, as long as they were dependent on me, I would have them latch on to me. But I
mm.
noticed that and I'm probably going in a different direction now. It's still part of the topic, but when it comes to parenting, it's like how much is enough or too much in the feeding, in the crying, the lady letting the baby cry before we notice. You know what I mean? Like we notice
Yeah.
something because I think that some parents often miss that. Maybe not realizing. that this could be connected or that it's not connected, that this could be normal or it's not normal when it comes to those particular things.
Mm. You want me to chime in on that?
I mean, hey, if you have
Hello,
something that's
chime in.
that's coming up, yeah, because I was stuck. I was
Yeah.
stuck.
Yeah, I think that I want to make sure that we don't criminalize symptoms that our body expresses. It's okay for our kiddos or adults. It's okay for us to have these symptoms per se because our body, our brain, our nervous system is incredibly intelligent, and its main goal is to help you to survive. So it knows what it's doing many times. I say that to say that when it comes to kids that are having spitting up issues, right? Or maybe they aren't sleeping well 1 or 2 nights, that's okay, right? This is okay for us to sometimes spit up our food. It's okay for us to not get a good night's rest. It's when you mentioned earlier, and I feel like, you mentioned we're the experts. You're the expert here. When you mentioned patterns, it's all about patterns, and being able to see these things. If we're spitting up, after every feeding, there's something deeper there. If we're every 35 to 45 minutes, we're screaming and wailing, there's something deeper there. And that's when we want to look into reaching out to other providers to have a different outlook on this type of situation. And I think it's important too that, yeah, I'll leave it with that answer. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that is, I'll chime in after you, is the noticing part, you know,
Mm.
um, for me is speaking about that, like to be aware is over, what's coming up for me is how often do you pay attention to another person? And I say that
Mm.
because I can be a space in busyness or in a space of being so stressed that I didn't notice how often my husband coughed, or how often did I leave my son in the room alone to play video games because I was
Hmm.
just so caught up in the work. Not that I didn't care and not that I don't love them. I do, to the deepest parts of my being. But to notice where my head is at so I can be aware of certain things. Like on Monday, you ate this particular apple. You know what
Well,
I mean?
you
Like,
you know, and I think that would throw us into on another branch, kind of more into your space. It all starts with our core values, and a lot of the times it's tough. I don't want to get political here, but it's tough when you live in a certain type of society, like the one we live in the US, being so, capitalism. Well, we can try our best to have the mindset of, even if we had the value of family, well, what's the reality? Well, we're going to get hit with billboards left and right. We're going to get reminded that we got to work, 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 make money. We got things to do. Go, 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 go. So even when we're trying our best to be there for our families and care about our health, capitalism is calling. And it's so tough to stop and be able to notice the things that you're talking about. We all wish that we could do, do these things slow down. So it's really about putting in a lot of work, in my opinion, on being able to cut out the noise. I think we take away the phone a little bit on yourself. When you wake up in the morning time, as hard as it may seem, that darn first hour, we're not looking at a phone. That phone needs to be over there. And the funniest way, you have technology to actually allow for you to do that. Put that phone over there. You don't, where you have to get up and walk across to another room and grab your phone. Doing these things, I feel like can help us reprogram that so we can spend more time and see these symptoms because a lot of the times they're right in front of us. They're right in front of us. They are. You know
And it
too
takes a
with
moment
your
to,
the yeah, go
yeah.
ahead. Mom's intuition, right? That's a very powerful, realistic thing. Um, and I think that gut feeling, listen to it. Listen to it. Having people tell you, like if you ever go to a provider and you're hearing the whole they'll just grow out of it, crazy two talk and all this stuff and things just or the type of screaming does not sound appropriate to you. Listen to that. Dig deeper. Dig deeper.
I mean, I would have to give them the shovel and show them how and where to dig, is what I'm noticing in these spaces. And that's why I wanted you to finish your thought, because what was coming up for me is, are you self-absorbed?
Mm,
We know that, and I say we know by research, that over 51% of the pregnancies have been unplanned. Did you even plan on being a parent? Because it takes a certain level of awareness and responsibility. And if not, it takes a certain level of learning. Are you self-absorbed that it's just about you, that you don't even want to put in the time to another human being? We have to be mindful of that too, because if we look around today, we see a lot of cases of abuse, a lot of cases, of things that are happening with babies.
yeah.
And I don't want to say not so much children, but babies that we know come into this world defenseless. We are their first line of defense. And
Yeah.
also, when you were talking about the intuition, what I've noticed in my spaces, in the birth work space, is that a lot of moms, and I would like to say a lot of new moms, but just moms in general, whether they're new, they're leveling up moms. And I say leveling up moms, like, to unlearn what you learned before to be a better mom, in a
Mm,
sense, better than the mom you were before, fine tuning your motherhood, so to speak. That they don't tap into that intuition. They're waiting on or expecting or hoping someone else tells them what they should be noticing or what they should be feeling. See, I do my childbirth education classes a little bit differently than what we have been accustomed to do them. And I'm
mm,
very mindful of saying that because it's proprietary information, but I go in with the indigenous aspect, like being an ambassador for Count the Kicks. We advocate and we educate on fetal movement monitoring. They have an app, you use the app, and it guides you along the way. When
mhm,
I share I include them in my childbirth education training. However, a step before that for me is to train the mother, especially the young mom, the new mom, or the seasoned mom that didn't have this experience before, to feel in her body, because some people don't feel safe in their bodies, but to notice, like, to be on high alert when you think you feel the flutters
mm,
before the kicks, the jabs. See, do you can you sense within your body that little baby, right? Oh, embryo. I don't want to I say baby, but floating within your womb, and it feels like little butterfly feelings. Can you
mm,
notice if it's little butterfly feelings, or are you holding gas and you got to fart? You know what I mean? Like, I talk to them like, just be so in tune, heighten your senses so you can sense that. And notice, where do you feel it more? Where do you feel the movement more? Just notice how small they are. They have all that space to float and to move. Do you feel it more on the left side? Do you feel it more on the side? Like, to have that type of, I don't want to say training, but that's what it is.
mm,
Because a lot of people, and I say people, birthing persons, they're not that deep. Like, I was deep like that in my pregnancy. Like, all right, where is it? Because the first month you normally don't know. The second month, maybe if you have morning sickness, hopefully by the third month, but sometimes the first trimester goes by.
mhm. Yeah.
It's unplanned. Some people are just shocked, like, what? And then so many decisions to make these days, depending on your belief system or depending on your capabilities and abilities to even be a parent. And like I said, I'm not here to knock anyone, everyone's decision of their own, but that level of awareness, that level of attunement, I find in my spaces needs to be trained. To take it one step further is, having that and then also being mindful of your own. We're so focused on, and the fears of the pregnancy and, becoming a mom and having a baby, but what's going on with me right now? Because to me, that's hand in hand. Do you notice your reflux? Do you notice when you're crying? Do you
Mm.
notice your lack of sleep? In order to be able to notice and recognize that in another person, especially your own child, because I don't see that coming innate to some people, like, or not authentic, but organically, like even with
Yeah,
breastfeeding, you have to be taught these things.
yeah, yeah. It really comes again, and I hate to sound like what they call it, where you repeat, but it's again like that system that we're being programmed in to not even be able to integrate and see inside, but be so reactive, that so reactive to the point where, our emotional intelligence is just, I mean, where is it? Like, what's your score? Like, are you able to understand why you're having anger? Okay, well, let's dive, deeper into those secondary, is it secondary or primary emotions to understand where it's really going, from a guy perspective at least. And so it's really tough. And we talked about this where it takes a village, and we have forces that are trying to split us. And I think it's important for us to repel that when we can come together, and especially in this space that we're talking about with families, moms and dads, when we can come into a space where we're working together and helping each other out, and not so much of, oh, you did a at-home birth, shun, or you did a hospital birth, shun. Like, what? No. When we can, let's fight for information so that that information can be delivered to us as families, and then we can make the best decisions that we can make for our families. Like, when we can do that, that's going to be very beneficial.
And when you're talking about, family, that's a team,
Mm,
and you're talking about working together. I just shared something with you in the audience from a female perspective, my perspective, a female's perspective, my motherhood experiences. You being on the other side of it, but you come from a different lens because of your profession. But
mm,
you're coming from the other side of it, meaning the male perspective, the father perspective. When we're talking about um, noticing awareness and intuition, what parts do yours play in that space, or can you speak on that? Like I said, you come from a different lens. So
mm.
professionally, you're like, oh, arch back, this means this. But just to speak to the fathers that might not have your level of expertise, so they can tap into their own awareness and their own intuition, because they have to watch their partner, mom, and the baby, both of those nervous systems, right? To
Mm.
to to make I don't know if you understand where I'm coming from. Like, how do they tap in? Because this is team thing
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, if I'm understanding your question, I'm gonna ask is, are you saying how does, from a male's perspective, or father's, future father even, how do they go about traversing, um, managing different roles that are required, whether it be during delivery, whether it be after, and you wanting to be a protector for your family. Is that where you're going with the question?
That, and because it's a and both,
Mm-hmm.
that and also tapping into their own intuition and noticing like something doesn't look right with my wife or with my partner or with the
Yeah.
surrogate mom. Let's put it that way. Something doesn't seem right, and we're talking about mom in the pregnancy, but even when the baby's already born, something doesn't seem right. Like his noticing of what we were talking about, the sleep, the food, the reflux, just
Yeah,
tapping into that, his powers.
it starts with getting rid of certain social norms that we've been taught as men regarding the only way you can protect is financially. I think that that's a big piece. I hear it a lot from other fathers, being either my friends or patients, that it's the whole I come in, even if they come in, some do, some don't. They'll come in and their thing is just to make sure that my child is protected. Okay. And that it's paid for, these kind of things. And I think it really starts there. It's understanding and tapping into that masculine side that there's more to it than that. You brought it up about you have to be able to understand yourself first. You have to be able to release emotions. You have to be able to identify emotions. You have to be able to do these certain things, and that will allow for you to tap more into um understanding that I'm more than just this guy that I can protect by giving money to my family. So I think it really starts there. It's a lot of work because you're not just doing it yourself, you're fighting against all of the other guys that are so, well, a real man is gonna have your big old boots on and get real dirty. And I'm like, hey, that's part of it. I'll be honest with you, that's part of it. And also, it's a part of being able to listen and being able to identify how your family is really feeling. And it's hard. If you can't do it yourself, how in the world are you able to identify um, really specific emotions that can be transmitted with us humans? So I think I tapped on your answering
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
question appropriately.
Definitely. Because it needs to be modeled, right? If you see it
Yes.
modeled by the men in front of you, or before you, y- you're able to model it as well. And then when you were
Mm.
tapping into the view of what a man is, it's also the stigma of this, of what's going on, that, men have to be like this, and also the expectation of some women. I have to
Oh,
bring it
yeah,
back to me. I was raised that, a man has to do X, Y, Z. And if a man
absolutely.
doesn't do X, Y, Z, then he's not a man. And
Absolutely.
then almost like when we were talking about in the green room before we came into this conversation, my thing with me is that I must not belong on this planet. I must belong somewhere else because I'm looking for something totally different. Does that
Yes.
even exist? I'm looking for, to truly be a helper. I'm looking to truly be a partner that, you could see the good, bad, and the ugly, and that I'm connected and attuned to you just as you are to me.
Mm.
The way that I was raised was, yeah, a man does handle certain things, being the protector, being the quote unquote head of the
Right.
household. And I put that in quotes because there's some women making more money than men that they're in taxes considered head of the household. It's also how I was raised, right? The belief system. These are the
Hmm.
things that a man does. These are the things that a woman does. A man was built for this. They come
Right.
in with more strength than a woman. But then in that same spectrum, I was also taught that a woman has her man's back. Yeah, you've been taking care of the bills and you've been doing this and you've been doing that, whatever, that is, because everybody's different. But when you're down or when you're in need, my awareness is heightened to the point that I'm able to see that and have your back. Like, no, you need to slow down. No, I got this.
Mm.
I was raised that as long as there's a man in the household, the woman never takes out the garbage. Never. That extreme. Never. Last year, I did a video on Facebook. My husband was exhausted. I was fully aware of the load that he carried, the weight that was on his shoulders, and he was asleep. And I saw the time and I'm like, do I wake him up and tell him that it's time because waste management is coming? I seriously had the conversation with myself, you know, but what came out from within me was, you know what? You're strong enough. You
Hmm.
can have his back. It's a dirty job. I don't like to do it. Nobody, he's human. He probably don't like to do it either. But you know what? It's best that he gets his rest
Yeah.
and I take care of this. And I went with like 3 bags. I took a video of me doing this, like for the ladies out there that don't want to break a nail, for the ladies out there, I think that this is my way of taking care of my man, my husband, having
Mhm.
his back. It's not only your job, it's a us thing, it's a we
Exactly.
thing. And I took it out. He woke up anyway, like 5 minutes after. Oh my goodness, guys. Don't worry about it, babe. I got
Yeah.
you can go back to rest now. And to me, that was satisfying. Like you don't always have to be, because I think that even with my brothers, I have 5 brothers, they always on this high alert with this I gotta do, I gotta be. And that their emotions are not validated. I
Mm.
hear this, when it comes to Father's Day, they don't give as much importance on Father's Day as they do on Mother's Day. Me and my husband have this conversation all the time. How many commercials do you see? Do we get anything else outside of Thai?
Yeah.
Where's that? And I think that as a society, right, when we're talking about the intuition, the noticing, being aware, the teamwork, all of that matters.
Mm.
We need to give just as much as importance to him as to her and to they and them, in order for that family to truly have wellness, in order for that family to fight off toxicity. Because we all catch a cold.
Yeah.
We all get sick every night. So it's like we're not immune. This world has a funny way of touching families in different ways. But when we're talking about the teamwork, when we're talking about the nervous system and noticing, it starts from there. Not only from the individual, to me, that's like the individual, then the two become one. And I'm not talking about getting married, folks. Don't get crazy on me. I'm just talking about two people becoming of one mind. That it takes a level of training, um, awareness, and interest. Like I have to be personally vested to do this. What's your thoughts on that?
If I'm being honest, I feel like you've said it all. I hate to do that cop out. And I haven't expressed this enough, but you use really similar, like we we our conversations flow really well. And at times I feel like we share very similar opinions about things. And even if we don't, um we can see how it all still floats underneath a specific umbrella. So I I don't have much to what you said.
To add into that. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I think that we do have a lot of things in common, like of the same mind when we're
Mm-hmm.
speaking about these topics and then starting something new, right? Because this is the first time that we're putting this together to bring, topics and conversations on a monthly basis to the audience. And with you saying that, what came up to me is the importance of collaborating. You know,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we have similarities. I'm good at what I do in my lane. You're good at what you do in your lane. And I think that, again, to emphasize, because we said this in the last conversation, having different professionals in your resources, in that support circle, to be able to offer something different to families. It might not be on their awareness, right? We're speaking about
Mm.
awareness. It might not, like for me, it still comes to me, Dr. Stefan, like, what does a chiropractor have to do with birth and babies? Like, what? When I was putting together the questions, I'm like, what do you know about colic, reflux? What is that? Sleep disruption. How do you help?
Yeah.
What? Honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna make this really f funny statement here, and you'll be like, "What? You better know." But really, I don't. My profession, I say my profession, I have to put them there. The neurologically focused chiros. We don't really need to know too much about these symptoms. What we do need to know is how to optimize that one system that controls everything, right? The one that puts you in a state that if you're in that state for too long, that protective mode, you'll begin to express these types of symptoms. All right. A lot of the times this colic, brought up or latching, these things are it's they're signals, right? Like in a car. It's to let you know that something isn't right. So when you tapped on kids and chiropractic, well, it's that we think about the amount. Well, many won't, so I'll explain that. Earlier we talked about those stressors, right? The physical, the chemical, the emotional. Think about the journey of these things before a kid is in this world. Think about that fertility stress, right? Think about now being in the womb. Okay. Think about the emotions that the mom will be enduring. Think about that baby is in this bubble. And this bubble can either get real hot because of mom's emotions, or it can be nice, cool, and relaxing. Then you have the next step, which is the actual birthing process, the delivery. And that one right there is a big one. And these things, these traumas, these stressors, that's what primes that brain in that kiddo to remember it's all about survival. So your brain is smart. It's gonna say, okay, well, man, you've hit me with all of these stressors, all of these things, I better have my foot on that gas. I better be in this fight or flight. I better be in this protective mode to get me right when I'm in this world. So remember what we said, being arched back, constantly moving, food's not digesting. You would be just like that too, right? If you were really stressed out. So our role in chiropractic is to see one, if that kiddo's body is in that state. And if it is, to find out why. And we correct that. To get a little bit deeper on that, because we're seeing it a lot now, and I love my profession, so I'm going to speak up on it, is we have a lot of other professions that are now seeing this thing about nervous system regulation or dysregulation. And chiropractic, educationally, philosophically, and scientifically, that's what they stood on, was that the nervous system is that when we can optimize that, that is the epitome of health. So our main job is to make sure that that system is performing at its best. And I'm going to add one more branch to this so that we can really see, well, what separates you? Okay, you're still saying the same thing as, PTs, OTs, other professions. Well, when we think about our nervous system, it's a loop. It's all about information comes into your brain and then an action goes out as a response, like a computer. If we're thinking about the telephone game and we're getting information that goes to our brain, well, what's the first step or what's the first stop? It's that spinal cord. My question to you is, if we have some interruptions on the way up to the brain when it comes to these signals, these messages, can we say that, well, the output will be disrupted? Right? When we played a telephone game and we got Cindy at the end saying something, by the time it gets to, to the end of that
It's so
that game,
distorted.
right, it's all distorted. So think about when we hear things or we're touching things and along that route, we're having these what we call interferences. If it stays there, then the brain's going to put out a message that's slightly not correct. And that message goes out to our body. It's what determines how well we sleep. It determines how well the breath work is. And we can go on and on. So our job in chiropractic is literally that. Where the heck along that spinal cord, that neurospinal system, are we seeing interferences? And let's correct that. Right. So we're coming at it from that main highway that goes to the brain. We're not starting at the brain. We're not starting at motor development. we're starting at that spinal cord, that pit stop, okay, before it gets to that brain. So that's the major distinction between when chiropractic says nervous system regulation, that's what we're talking about.
Oh, you have you have my brain and my thoughts going all over the place with that one. I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh, that was good. That was
Yeah.
good. Because it brought me back when you were talking about, to think about the process. And I don't want to venture off to somewhere because this could be another conversation for another day. But I was thinking about, okay, so if 51% of the pregnancies are not planned, how prepared is that womb to hold the child? Because it's like, what I'm talking about. We're human beings, human nature. Sometimes when a person knock on your door, you're like, oh my goodness, I gotta clean my house. Oh my
Yep.
goodness. Oh, please excuse the mess. But does the embryo, the fetus, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go through all the stages, but do they get the opportunity to hear, excuse the mess, you know? And since we start out as the neural tube, and I'm thinking from the cells, the embryo, the fetus, that perspective, that area. And the first thing that's formed is the brain and the spine.
Mm,
And the brain is already made to protect itself. This is where my mind went, like, oh my goodness, could could that embryo get signals in that brain protecting itself? It's not safe for me to be here.
mm. Ooh, that's deep.
That's where I went. That's what I said, conversation for another time. But that's where
Hmm.
because I'm so connected into this, into the understanding of it, into sharing the importance
Mm,
of every decision that we make. Not to knock anyone. My pregnancies were not planned. I mean, I knew that I wanted to be pregnant. I just didn't say I'm gonna purposely you know, watch when I'm ovulating. I was just like, I'm just going to do this a lot of times until it happens. That's going
yeah,
to be me. But I didn't take that extra step when I was younger, like stop smoking. How much caffeine am I drinking? Because once
mhm,
again, with the capitalism, I got to work. I'm in corporate America. I got to work. I got to make this money.
yeah.
And then thinking to myself that, yes, I'm so beautifully and wonderfully made. This is when I was like, OD, am I being a believer that, that it's impossible for it to happen to me because I'm so young and I'm so strong.
Mm,
These to be aware that all of these things are interconnected. To be aware that, my nervous system needs to be the most optimal it can be, the most regulated it can be. So that way when I bring a child into they're not in like whitewater rapids. We're talking about like the womb, like that they're coming into the space that is the most calm. And I can speak on this a little bit, Stefan, because I noticed it with my last birth.
mm,
It was the most happiest, the most calmest pregnancy I had. This child did not even cry. I didn't know what a crying baby was.
mm.
This child was always smiling and happy. Right before the pandemic, this child walking was hugging everyone, regardless of color, creed, culture, etc.
Yeah.
This person called every elder that they saw grandma, grandpa, and then I saw the shift, with the lockdown. But with my other children, they're like my oldest, I can tell that he has anxiety. With my daughter, I can tell that she has other things she has to navigate. And then I think back to their home. Where were they? What was that condition? And it was not a good condition for them. And I can see it now as they're growing up into, older adults. So I'm
Mm,
just saying that to say it's very, very important, but that's where my brain went. Like, oh my goodness, when we talking about grab things at the roots, we
hmm.
gotta go all the way back.
All the way back. Yeah.
So to bring the professional audience into this conversation, to help them understand that you specialize in this area. I have specializations in my area. It goes around the nervous system. But to just be aware that to support families, they need to come from that perspective, that they
Hmm.
should understand the nervous system and what that stress is, not only just to the mom or to the family, but to the baby, to the child. And
Hmm.
that will give you so many clues to the colic, the not sleeping, just to so many things. I mean, you have to know how it works. Like you said, the car, the engine light is going off.
Yeah.
You don't give it more antifreeze. You check out what's going on with that piece of the
Yeah.
vehicle.
You connect the dots, and that's another thing is that a lot of times we separate these symptoms without really understanding that many times it could be that overhaul of the system, right? And that it can all be connected. You know, a baby that started off screaming, hollering, and these things now, next thing you know, it's not able to poop, right? Constipated, and then, it- I mean, yeah, I almost thought about a recent patient, but yeah, like a lot of these things are really connected.
And for the parents sitting in uncertainty right now, just to wrap it up a little bit,
Mhm.
when should they trust their instincts and ask deeper questions?
Always,
Always, always, always trust your
always do
instinct.
that. Always trust your instinct and go ahead and start that research anyways. Because I'll be honest with you, depending on where we live too, you're not gonna have a lot of information out there to even let you know of all these providers that are out here to look at your child from a different perspective. Many times, you know, we may not be, as we say, blessed to know that there's someone called an IBCLC. You know, to know that there is even a chiropractor. I did not grow up. I didn't know about a chiropractor until the end of my bachelor's degree. You know, I didn't know anything about that. I'm Savannah, and I guess even further, people would say there's a chiro, but I guess where I'm from, you know, that wasn't something that kind of like if you had money, you know, that at that point, then you would have a chiropractor, and uh, it really starts there. Like always, you trust that mommy, daddy gut, and do your research. Do your research because I love America, and I also understand the pros and cons of the system we live in. And it is not, for the most part, designed around uh, helping us provide the best for our kid, giving us every possible asset and connection we need and information that we need to best serve our families.
I'm sure it's true.
So
Dr.
start now.
Nichols, you're right spot on that. And I appreciate our conversations so much. Thank you for helping us launch this monthly expert series with such an important conversation. I think what stands out most in this is that babies communicate long before words. And sometimes what families are witnessing deserve curiosity, not dismissal. And for our professional audience, this is a reminder that collaborative care is not weakness, it's
Mhm.
wisdom, because healthier families happen when professionals understand where their expertise begins and where partnership becomes essential. This is one of the main reasons why I reached out to Dr. Stefan Nichols. Like, we need to put this out there. I didn't know the importance of chiropractic care in this space in the field. So if today's conversation resonated with you, please share it with a parent, a provider, or someone supporting families who may benefit. And if you'd like to connect with Dr. Stefan Nichols, reach out to him. He's at Rise Family Chiropractic, Peachtree Corners in Georgia. We'll have all his details in the show notes. And until next time, keep asking questions. Trust your intuition. And like Dr. Nichols said, always ask the questions, always trust that, and keep building stronger circles of support. And as always, chime in.
Thank you. Thank you.